Welcome to the overview of CompuWare's Hyperstation solution. A Hyperstation is a solution that helps you automate your testing of your mainframe applications. When we talk about manual testing, there's a lot of challenges associated with that. They're very error-prone and inconsistent from one test or one release to another. They're obviously very time-consuming. Customers have reported that they spend up to 75% of their project time just doing testing. And we're trying to do that with limited resources. On top of that, we're unable to mirror production as closely as we like, and we have incomplete documentation of exactly what was tested. So some of the goals of automating our testing. The big one is to save time and enhance productivity. Again, if we can reduce that 75% of our project time that goes to testing, even by a fraction, 10 or 20%, that translates into significant savings. So we're trying to do more testing, do it more often, right? Automate the testing execution and track what was tested. And then on top of it, we're trying to reduce the risk of application failures. We're trying to get more thorough testing, more consistent testing, trying to mirror more closely what's going on in production. And with agile development now, we're having to do more testing cycles. Right? Instead of testing once a quarter, or in some cases once a year, a lot of companies are now testing on a 2-week cycle. And without automation, there's no way we can get that amount of testing done. So how does Hyperstation help? Well, it can automatically record activity to your online applications. It'll automatically create scripts based on this activity and allow you to replay those scripts. On top of it, it allows you to compare the expected results with the actual results that came back and flag any differences. Now, these differences could be an append, it could be an error message that pops up on the screen, or it could just be that the data that's being returned is different. Hyperstation also allows you to enhance the scripts using the Rex scripting language. So you can do things like data-driven testing or create your own reports if you want to. Now there's 3 pieces to the Hyperstation solution. There's Hyperstation for VTAM. This allows you to test your 3270-based applications like CICS, IMS, TSO. And what it'll do is it'll capture the screen images themselves or the data flow, and then it can replay that and interact with that application just as if a user was there, but do it automatically and even increase the number of people. So you can do things like stress testing your application, so it can simulate more than one user. There's also a piece of Hyperstation which handles TCP/IP traffic. This is called Hyperstation for mainframe servers. And if there's traffic that's coming across your network that's interacting with the mainframe application, for instance, for CICS transactions, Hyperstation can record that activity and then replay that back and drive those CICS transactions again without the distributed app driving it. And then the third piece is Hyperstation for WebSphere MQ. And again, this tends to be more of a distributed application that's communicating with the mainframe application via a WebSphere MQ message. And Hyperstation can capture that message and then replay that and drive the mainframe application again. I'm actually going to go into the product now and just show you how easy it is to create some of these scripts. So I'm going to go into the Hyperstation for VTAM, and we have something called a main traveler. And what this allows me to do is log on to another application now. In this case, it's the CICS region. And all I have to do is say record. It's going to ask me where I want to store the script. And this is just a PDS on your mainframe. And now I can just continue on and test the application like I normally would. So I'm going to log on. I'm going to run a transaction. And then I'm going to back out and log off. At this point, the recording is stopped because I logged off the application. But I want to show you what that script looks like. All right, there's the one we just created. And you can see that it's captured an image of the screen just as it was presented to me by CICS, and then captured my inputs to that screen, including any action key. Then it presented another blank screen to me, and I entered the transaction name. There's the first screen of that transaction, and again, it captured my inputs. I entered a 1 in that field, and then pressed the F8 key. And that's how simple it is. It's going to record exactly what I did during that session. Now, if I want to play it back, I can go right back in here and say play. And it'll go through and just play back that script for me. Now, it's very easy to modify these scripts. So if I wanted to change some of the data, some input data, I could do it right in that script. Or as I said before, you can use recs to read values from an external data set, right? A data-driven test where I may want to do an inquiry on multiple records, or maybe I want to add some records to the database. It could read that from an external file into the script and then run the script numerous times based on how many records there are. Now, there is another piece or another way to record scripts, and this is called global recording. Using global recording, I'm not recording necessarily what I'm doing. I can record what another user on the system is doing. For instance, if I have somebody that's going to be testing that application, I can record their activity and then create scripts out of that that can be played back. So I can go into global recording, go to one, monitoring requests, and I'm just going to add a new one just to show you that, again, here's the application, happens to be that CICS region, or I could specify a user ID and only record a specific user using that application. And I could also use terminal ID, which isn't used very much anymore. But typically, we filter based on the application ID and the user ID. And then based on this criteria, it would record activity, and then you could create scripts. And the scripts would look just like I showed you already. Now, this global recording functionality is also how we would capture data from mainframe servers or from WebSphere MQ. The only difference is the criteria that we use as to what to capture. A user ID in an application wouldn't really make sense where we're talking about TCP/IP traffic. But what we would do is we could use IP address and port numbers of either the client side or the server side. Now, typically, the server side IP address is going to be the IP address of your LPAR, but different applications will listen on different ports. Or if we know all the traffic is going to be coming from a specific client, then we could use that criteria to record it. This works for things like CICS Transaction Gateway, DB2 Connect or DB2 Distributed, IMS transactions, IMS Connect. Right? So any traffic that's coming through your IP network and some application on the mainframe is on one end of that communication, Hiperstation can record that activity, create a script out of it, and then allow you to play it back. And then the third piece is the WebSphere MQ. And again, very similar. The difference is how do we filter? Rather than application user ID or IP addresses, what makes sense for MQ series is the queue manager name and then the queues. Right, so if there's a distributed application that's putting a message in a queue and then a CICS transaction is processing that or an IMS transaction is processing that, you can just put the queue name in here, and again, wildcard it if you want to. We would collect any messages that go there. You may want to include the response queue or the reply queue. We can capture that also. And then we can create scripts out of that and allow you to replay them. Now, I did show you how to replay a script online, but there is also the ability to use JCL to execute these scripts. And the tool will help you generate the JCL and the control cards needed. Right? Because typically we don't want to have to be online when we run these scripts. We want to just use a scheduling package or something, or some type of an orchestration tool like Jenkins that would submit this JCL automatically for us and probably do it at night or on the weekends. So that kind of concludes the overview of the Hiperstation product line. If you have any questions about what you've seen here, please contact your local CompuWare team. They would be happy to provide a live demonstration or a live question and answer session to make sure that all of your questions are answered. Thank you very much.